The galaxy was not kind anymore. It had once been a place of endless light, full of songs, peace, and hope. But now it was filled with fear. The strong ruled over the weak, and the powerful empires spread terror among those who could not fight back. Entire planets had been turned into dust. Entire species had vanished, their names forgotten by time. Among the countless worlds that suffered, there was one small planet named Valara, a place of beauty and peace. The Valari people were gentle beings. They had silver eyes that glowed softly, and voices that could sing in perfect harmony. They believed that love and kindness could heal the universe. They built no weapons, no armies, and no walls. To them, peace was strength, but peace could not stop the darkness that was coming. The Drakath Dominion, a cruel and war-loving empire, had set its eyes on Valara. The Drakath believed that the weak existed only to serve the strong. Their ships were like giant beasts of metal, black and red, filled with fire and hate. When they arrived in Valari space, the sky turned dark with their war machines. The Valari had never seen war before. They did not know how to fight. Their leaders gathered in the Great Hall of Light, trembling as they watched the Drakath ships appear on their sky screens. The oldest among them, Elder Saren, stood up with shaking hands and said in a trembling voice, "Send a message to anyone who can hear us. Ask for mercy. Ask for help." They sent their signal into the stars, a desperate, weak transmission filled with fear and hope. "This is Valara," the message said. "We are a peaceful world. Please, if anyone hears us, save us. We do not want to die." For days the message traveled through the dark space, bouncing off dead satellites and ancient ruins, but no one answered. The galaxy was too busy fighting, too selfish, too afraid. When the Drakath landed, they came without warning. Their soldiers wore black armor and burned everything in sight. The Valari ran for their lives, their songs turning into cries. The smell of fire filled the air, and their glowing forests turned into ash. Children were taken. Villages were destroyed. The Great Hall fell. Elder Saren was among the last to be captured. Before being dragged away, he looked up at the burning sky and whispered softly, "Please, someone, anyone, hear us." And far, far away across the endless void, someone did. On a distant blue planet called Earth, deep beneath the oceans in a hidden military base, a weak signal suddenly came alive on the communication grid. A technician almost ignored it at first. It was faint, broken, and ancient. But when he cleaned the audio, he froze. It wasn't a coded message or a military distress call. It was a voice. A child's voice. The child was crying, begging for help. Within hours, the message reached Admiral Renee Carter, the highest-ranking officer of the Earth Defense Command. She was a woman known for her calm eyes and unshakable heart. She had fought in the Terran Wars long ago, wars that had nearly destroyed Earth itself. Humanity had since gone silent, retreating from the galaxy to heal and rebuild. Most other species believed Earth was gone, dead, forgotten. But Earth was not dead. It had been waiting. Admiral Carter listened to the Valari child's voice again and again. The pain in that small voice reminded her of Earth's past, the cries of her own people when no one came to help them. She remembered the silence of space when humanity had been hunted by its own monsters. She stood in the command hall, surrounded by the hum of powerful machines, and said quietly, "Prepare the fleet." The officers looked up in surprise. "Ma'am, we haven't revealed our existence in decades. Are you sure?" Admiral Carter's voice was steady, but her eyes burned with emotion. "No one should be hunted for being weak," she said. "We remember what that felt like, and we won't let it happen again." Across the base, alarms began to sound. Old ships that had been sleeping for years came alive. Engines roared, hangar lights turned blue, and the Earth fleet began to rise from its long slumber. Massive dreadnoughts, sleek carriers, and silent destroyers, machines built not for conquest, but for protection. The oceans trembled as they broke the surface, climbing toward the stars. Admiral Carter watched them from the bridge window, her reflection shimmering against the stars. "Signal to all ships," she said softly. Course set, Valara system. The crew nodded, feeling something awaken in their hearts. It wasn't anger. It wasn't vengeance. It was something stronger. The duty to protect. As the first human ships vanished into hyperspace, the old motto of Earth's warriors echoed once again across the void. No one hunts the helpless while humanity breathes. The galaxy had forgotten the name of Earth. But soon, it would remember. For a long time, the galaxy had forgotten the name Earth. To most, it was a myth, an ancient world that had destroyed itself in wars. A legend whispered by old traders and space wanderers. Some said humans had wiped themselves out. Others said they had gone silent out of shame. But none of them knew the truth. Earth had not died. It had been watching. After the Terran Wars, when nations fell and cities turned to dust, humanity swore never to repeat its mistakes. The survivors built secret colonies deep under oceans, inside mountains, and even beneath the surface of the moon. They hid their technology, erased their signals from the galaxy's networks, and vanished from the eyes of the stars. While the rest of the galaxy grew arrogant and cruel, humans rebuilt, slowly, quietly, and with purpose. They studied the mistakes of the past. They learned humility, but they also built machines beyond imagination, ships made of living metal, stealth drives that could hide entire fleets, and weapons powerful enough to break a planet's orbit. Yet these tools were locked away, for humans no longer sought to rule. They waited, watching from the shadows, hoping that peace would one day return to the galaxy. Then came the message from Valara, a faint cry echoing through time and distance. When Admiral Renee Carter heard that message, something inside her stirred. She had seen suffering before. She had seen children die during the Terran Wars. The Valari's desperate call brought back every painful memory she had buried. For a moment, she stood alone in the dark command room, listening to the soft static between the cries. The child's voice shook with fear. "Please, someone, help us." Carter closed her eyes. She could almost hear her younger self speaking those same words long ago, when humanity was on its knees. She opened her eyes and whispered, "We will not turn away." In the great hangars of the Earth Defense Fleet, life returned after decades of silence. Gigantic engines hummed as engineers prepared ships that hadn't flown in years. Pilots put on their black flight suits, touching the small silver pins on their chests. Symbols of honor, not power. The first ship to awaken was the TDS Valiant, an ancient Terran dreadnought. Its hull was scarred from old wars, but its heart still burned with strength. Around it, dozens of smaller ships aligned. Frigates, cruisers, carriers, all ready to rise once more. The ocean above them trembled as water boiled and waves crashed. From the depths, like sleeping titans, the ships rose toward the surface, breaking through with a thunder that shook the sky. People from coastal cities looked up in awe, their eyes wide as massive shadows passed overhead. The world that had hidden for so long was finally stepping into the light again. In the control center, Admiral Carter stood before a massive holographic map showing the Valara system. Her officers surrounded her, their faces lit by the blue glow. They knew what this mission meant. It wasn't about revenge, it was about memory, about humanity's promise to never let history repeat itself. Commander Lee, her closest officer, looked uneasy. "Admiral," he said quietly, "if we reveal ourselves now, the galaxy will know Earth still lives. We can't predict how they'll react." Carter turned toward him. Her voice was calm but firm. "Then let them know," she said. "Let them see what humanity stands for. We will not rule them. We will remind them." Lee nodded. There was nothing more to say. The countdown began. 10 seconds to jump. The engines of the fleet flared like blue suns, and for a brief moment, the entire horizon glowed with light. The ocean below reflected the brilliance of the rising ships. And then, like a heartbeat, they vanished into hyperspace. Far away, across the stars, the Valari people were losing hope. Their cities burned. Their skies screamed with Drakath ships. Mothers held their children and prayed to the stars, not knowing that something was already coming. A little Valeri girl sat by a broken transmitter, her small hands shaking as she sent the same message again and again. Her eyes were full of tears, her voice weak and tired. "Please, anyone, please help us." Then suddenly her transmitter flickered. The static changed. She blinked, confused. The signal had caught something powerful. A calm human voice came through. "This is Earth Defense Command." "We received your message," the girl gasped. Her tears stopped for a moment as she listened. The voice continued, strong and steady, filled with warmth and promise. "Hold on, little one. You're not alone anymore. Help is on the way." The transmission cut off, and high above the galaxy in the endless black sky a fleet of silver and blue warships broke through hyperspace. Their lights cut across the darkness like a blade. Humanity had returned. The forgotten planet had risen again. And the galaxy was about to learn that Earth's silence was never weakness, it was preparation. When the message spread across the stars that Earth was coming, most of the galaxy laughed. "Earth?" they said, mocking the name as if it were a forgotten joke. "Those savages? Those ghosts of the past?" No one believed it. For centuries, humans had vanished from every galactic record. Their colonies were empty, their beacons silent. Many thought the species had destroyed itself long ago. The idea that Earth still existed and was sending ships sounded impossible, but rumors have power. And soon, whispers began to move through star markets, pirate dens, and military outposts. Old captains who had once fought against humans in forgotten wars spoke in quiet tones. "They don't lie," one said. "If the humans have returned, then the galaxy should be afraid." The Drakath Dominion, the cruel empire attacking Valara, didn't believe a word. Their commander, Lord Krathen, stood on the bridge of his flagship, a monstrous vessel made of black metal and burning plasma veins. He grinned when he heard the reports. "Earth?" he repeated with amusement. "Send me their location. I'll turn their planet into ash before their first ship even arrives." The Drakath soldiers laughed. They were born in war. To them, mercy was weakness. The idea of a defensive human fleet sounded ridiculous, but laughter would soon turn to silence. Out beyond the edge of Valara's dying sun, space began to tremble. The sensors of the Drakath ships picked up strange energy readings, deep, powerful, and ancient. At first they thought it was a malfunction. Then their screens turned white. Something was coming. From hyperspace, a light burst open like a star being born, and through it came shapes, massive, dark, and silent. The Earth fleet. The first ship to appear was the TDS Valiant, the same dreadnought that had risen from Earth's oceans. Its hull gleamed like obsidian, its symbol of a blue globe shining proudly. Around it followed dozens of other ships, carriers, destroyers, and corvettes forming a perfect deadly formation. For a moment, the Drakath soldiers stared, stunned. They had never seen ships like these. No waste of metal, no bright colors, no arrogance, only quiet strength. Every human vessel looked like it was built for one purpose: to protect. Admiral Renee Carter stood on the bridge of the Valiant, her hands clasped behind her back. Her calm voice broke the silence. "Fleet status. All systems online, Admiral. Target scans complete. The Drakath have over 200 warships in orbit," her officer replied. Carter looked out at the distant flashes of fire across Valara's surface. Even from here she could see cities burning. The Valari didn't have much time left. She took a deep breath. "Open channel to the Drakath flagship." Moments later, Lord Krathen's sneering face appeared on the main screen. His eyes glowed red, his grin wide and cruel. "So," he said mockingly, "the humans really do exist. I thought your kind went extinct. You came to save these weak singers? Pathetic." Carter's voice remained calm. "Withdraw your forces. Leave Valara immediately. This is your only warning." Krathen laughed so loudly the sound echoed through every ship on both sides. "A warning? From ghosts? I think not. He leaned closer to the screen, eyes burning. "We are the Drakath Dominion. We hunt the helpless. It is our right." Carter didn't flinch. Her tone stayed steady. "Not anymore." The connection ended. Moments later, the first Drakath ships fired. Red beams of plasma cut across the void, aiming for the human fleet. The blasts struck, but when the light faded, the human shields shimmered, untouched. Then came silence. And then, Earth struck back. Human ships moved like shadows, precise and deadly. They didn't roar or boast. They glided. They spoke only through action. Every shot they fired was clean and controlled, never wasting energy, never causing unnecessary damage. One by one, Drakath warships exploded into flame. The galaxy had never seen such tactics. Human coordination, machine intelligence, and sheer will working as one. Admiral Carter watched every move. Her officers expected her to smile at the victory, but she didn't. Her heart was heavy. "These are not enemies," she whispered softly. "They are reminders." The battle lasted only 13 minutes. 13 minutes that would change history forever. When the smoke cleared, the Drakath fleet was gone, either destroyed or fleeing into the dark. The Volari people watched from their scorched world, eyes full of disbelief. From their burning forests, they looked up and saw strange ships hovering above, their blue light shining through the clouds like new stars. A Volari child pointed at the sky and asked, "Who are they?" An elder with tears running down her face whispered, "They are the Forgotten Ones. And they came for us." The news spread faster than light. Across every system, the name Earth was spoken again. Some whispered it with fear, others with hope. The galaxy realized the truth. The humans were not gone. They had simply been waiting. And their return was not for conquest. It was for justice. The battle had begun. Red beams of Drakath fire cut across the void, slicing through darkness aimed to destroy everything human. But the Earth fleet moved like a living storm, fluid, precise, and unrelenting. Every ship, from the smallest corvette to the massive TDS Valiant, seemed alive with purpose. No panic, no chaos, only focus, discipline, and unshakable resolve. Admiral Renee Carter stood on the bridge of the Valiant, her eyes scanning every flicker on the tactical screen. Her heart beat steadily, not with fear but with the weight of responsibility. Every moment mattered. Every life mattered. "Targets acquired," her lieutenant said. "Engaging Drakath fleet in 5, 4, 3. The human ships struck like lightning. Massive energy beams tore through the enemy lines, ripping metal and fire apart in precise bursts. Unlike the Drakath, humans did not destroy for pleasure. They destroyed to protect. Each Drakath vessel that fell cleared a path toward Valara, toward the defenseless, toward hope. On the surface of Valara, the people watched in awe. Smoke rose from burning cities, but above them, blue and silver streaks of human ships danced through the sky. Children clutched each other, hearts pounding, faces wet with tears. Their mothers whispered prayers into the wind, feeling for the first time that salvation was real. One small Valerie girl, Lyra, pressed her hands to her cheeks and said softly, "They came. They came for us." Elder Saren, standing nearby, nodded slowly, not because they must, but because they remember. Humanity knows what it means to suffer, and it will not let others suffer alone. In space, the Drakath commander, Lord Crathan, roared with fury. His flagship shuddered as human beams tore through its hull. How is this possible?" he shouted. "These humans, these ghosts, they fight with the precision of gods." He barked orders, but the Drakath ships were faltering. The humans anticipated every move. Drones deployed from the Valiant struck the Drakath engines, disabling their fighters before they could even fire. Human fighters weaved between enemy turrets, striking in coordinated bursts that left the Drakath fleet in chaos. Even the seasoned Drakath soldiers hesitated, unsure of how to respond. For the first time in centuries, they faced an enemy they could not intimidate. Back on the Valiant, Carter's face remained calm. Her eyes reflected the blue glow of hyperspace engines and energy shields. She gave a single command, low and steady: protect the innocents, strike only to save lives. Her officers obeyed, executing maneuvers that would be studied by historians for centuries. The Earth fleet became an unstoppable shield, a wall of fire and steel protecting Valara. Every ship that attempted to escape the Drakath wrath was blocked. Every innocent being was shielded by a precise, deadly dance of technology and skill. In one small pocket of the battle, a human fighter pilot, Lieutenant Rian Voss, swooped low, destroying a Drakath bombardment ship moments before it could fire on a Valari city. His voice came through the comms to other pilots, calm but filled with conviction. They don't get to kill them. Not today. Not ever. It was not anger. It was determination. Humanity had fought for survival before, and now it fought for others. The Drakath flagship took massive damage. Fires ripped through its hull. Explosions echoed across space. Crathan's fury turned to panic. He realized that his empire, built on terror and cruelty, could not withstand the humans' strategy, their unity, their courage. He sent one last desperate message to the Earth fleet: yield. I am your superior. Submit. The reply was simple, calm, and unforgettable. Your empire survives only on fear. Fear dies here. And with that, the Valiant fired a controlled, precise strike that disabled the Drakath command systems. Their fleet scattered into the darkness, broken and defeated. When the last Drakath ship fled, silence fell over Valara. Blue lights of the human fleet hovered above the planet, steady and protective. The fires below still burned, but the screams of terror had faded. For the first time in decades, the Valari people could breathe without fear. Children ran into the streets, looking up at the humans above. They didn't know their names, but they knew their hearts. They had come not to conquer, not to enslave, but to protect. Lyra, the small Valari girl, raised her hands to the sky and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for remembering us." Elder Saren placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. They remember what it means to be defenseless. That is the greatest gift of all. Above the battlefield, the Earth fleet held its formation. No one cheered. No one celebrated. They were guardians, not conquerors. But the galaxy had already begun to notice. The legend of the humans, long thought extinct, was being rewritten in real time. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the survivors of the Drakath Empire whispered in fear and disbelief. Across the stars, other weak civilizations watched and hoped. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never forget the day the defenseless were protected by a force beyond. Reckoning, the battle was over, but the story had only just begun. The Drakath Empire had never faced defeat like this. Across their conquered worlds, whispers of fear spread faster than their fleets could fly. Entire systems trembled, not from battle, but from the idea of humans returning. They exist, one frightened governor murmured, clutching his command console. They are real, and they are not weak. On Valara, the aftermath of the battle left scorched cities, but the people were alive. Mothers hugged children tightly. Elder Saren walked through the streets amazed and humbled. For centuries, his people had lived under fear, never daring to hope. Now they could dream again. The humans did not stay to rule or to demand loyalty. Their fleet hovered above the planet for only a short while, ensuring that no Drakath soldiers remained to strike again. Their mission was protection, not conquest. Admiral Renee Carter stood on the bridge of the TDS Valiant, staring at the stars. Her eyes reflected the blue glow of countless engines. For a moment, silence reigned, a silence that spoke louder than any victory celebration. "This is only the beginning," she said softly to her officers. "The galaxy must remember that the defenseless will always have defenders." Her voice was calm, but there was fire in her heart. Humanity had waited patiently for this moment. They had suffered their own wars, lost their own children, and seen their own cities burn. They understood fear better than anyone, and they would not allow it to reign unchecked anywhere else. News of Earth's fleet spread like wildfire. Across the stars, civilizations that had been hunted, enslaved, or ignored saw a glimmer of hope. Rebel leaders sent secret messages. Planetary governors whispered to their people. Those who had lost everything dared to dream again. The Draketh tried to regroup. They sent new fleets to attack other defenseless worlds, but every time, the humans intercepted. Each attack ended the same way. Precision strikes, shields protecting the weak, and Draketh forces retreating in confusion and terror. For the first time, fear was turned back on the hunters. The galaxy began to realize that power was not measured by how many you could destroy, but by what you would protect. On a small, forgotten moon, a group of rebel fighters cheered silently as they watched a human convoy pass overhead. One young pilot, barely old enough to hold a blaster, whispered, "Humans. They saved Valara. Maybe they can save us too." The sentiment spread. Across dozens of systems, entire civilizations began to rise from their fear. The Draketh Empire, once untouchable, started to crumble, not because humans had destroyed them entirely, but because the universe had learned that they were no longer untouchable. Back on Valara, Elder Saren watched as the human fleet prepared to leave. He bowed deeply, tears streaming down his face. "You came when no one else would," he said. "You remembered the weak and saved them." Carter appeared on the holographic communicator, her calm, steady face looking down at him. "We do not fight for glory," she said. "We fight because someone must. The galaxy has forgotten what it means to protect the defenseless. We have not." The message was simple, but it resonated across the stars. Even distant, neutral civilizations heard it. Earth was no longer a forgotten planet. It was a symbol, a warning, and a promise. Cruelty would not go unchallenged. As the humans jumped into hyperspace, some ships were lost. The battle had cost lives. Pilots, engineers, and soldiers who had trained for decades did not return. Carter herself stayed behind longer than most, coordinating the final strike against the last Draketh remnants. Her last words before vanishing from the Valara comms became legend. "If the galaxy fears us for defending the weak, let it fear. But let the innocent sleep safely tonight." The galaxy was changed. Everywhere the powerful and cruel reconsidered their actions. No longer could they hunt the helpless without consequence. The humans had proven that compassion could be stronger than terror. On Valara, the people began rebuilding. Their forests regrew slowly, cities repaired themselves, and songs returned to the skies. Children learned the story of the humans, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Elder Saren watched a small child sing in the ruins of the Great Hall. He smiled through tears. "Perhaps the galaxy is not lost," he whispered. "Perhaps hope can exist even in the darkest corners of space." And somewhere in the void, the Earth fleet disappeared once more into the silence of the stars. They left no colonies, no empires, no banners of conquest. They left only a lesson. The weak would always have defenders. The defenseless were never truly alone, and the galaxy, for the first time in countless centuries, remembered the name of Earth. The fires of battle had cooled, but the scars on the galaxy remained. Planets that had been conquered, enslaved, or burned slowly began to heal. The Valeri people walked among ruins, their silver eyes reflecting both grief and relief. Children laughed cautiously, stepping over rubble, holding hands, and whispering stories about the strange saviors who had appeared from the stars. Elder Saren stood atop a hill overlooking the Valeri capital. The horizon was a mix of blackened ruins and new green shoots, the first sign of recovery. He listened to the soft hum of the Earth fleet hovering above the planet, a silent, watchful presence. Though the humans did not stay to rule, their ships remained long enough to ensure safety. "They do not claim our world," Saren whispered to the young girl Lyra beside him. "They do not take our homes. They only guard them. Because they understand what it means to be helpless." Lyra looked up, eyes wide. "Will they come back?" she asked. Saren shook his head slowly but smiled. "Perhaps. But even if they do not, we will always remember. They gave us hope. Across the galaxy, the story of Earth's fleet spread like sunlight over darkness. Worlds that had once trembled before tyrants began to rebuild not just their cities but their courage. Entire civilizations learned a lesson that the Drakath Empire had never understood. Strength was not measured by fear, but by the courage to protect the weak. Some planets that had been enslaved sent messages of gratitude to the empty space, hoping that the humans might hear. Rebel leaders used the stories of the Earth fleet as symbols, inspiring resistance and courage where none had existed. The galaxy remembered the humans not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as guardians, silent, powerful, and righteous. On Earth, the fleet returned home in silence. The massive ships that had risen from oceans and deserts disappeared into hidden stations once again. Engineers cleaned weapons, repaired engines, and rested tired crews. Pilots removed their helmets and stared at the stars they had just crossed, thinking of the worlds they had saved. Admiral Renee Carter walked among them, her face calm but her eyes carrying the weight of the mission. She did not speak of glory. She did not boast. She had only one thought. The defenseless were no longer alone, and that was enough. One pilot approached her quietly, asking, "Admiral, did we really make a difference?" Carter looked out at the darkening sky above Earth, where stars reflected off the ocean waves. Her voice was steady, filled with quiet pride. "Yes," she said. "We remembered what it feels like to be powerless. And we acted. That is enough to change the galaxy." Back on Valara, rebuilding began. The forests slowly grew back, the rivers cleaned themselves, and cities were repaired with help from both the Valari and human technology. Teachers taught children songs of hope and courage, not just survival. Artisans painted murals depicting the silver-eyed people standing under a sky filled with human ships, their blue lights shining like new suns. For the first time in centuries, the Valari believed that the galaxy could be a place of hope, not just fear, and though the humans did not stay permanently, their presence left a mark deeper than any weapon could have. The Valari did not call it victory. They called it freedom. Across other systems, similar stories played out. Planets once enslaved by the Drakath quietly celebrated the humans' intervention. Leaders sent memorials. Children drew pictures of distant silver and blue ships, and the song of freedom echoed across the stars. Humans had given the galaxy more than protection. They had given it belief. Even in the silence of space, in systems too far to see, the galaxy knew one truth. The humans were watching. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. The memory of their actions would remain long after the fleet disappeared from sight. Elder Saren sat under a tree in Valara's rebuilt capital, listening to the laughter of children. He smiled, tears sliding down his cheeks. "The dawn after war is not just the end of fire," he whispered. "It is the birth of hope, courage, and memory. The humans have given us all three." Above the planet, the last silhouettes of the Earth fleet disappeared into hyperspace. The galaxy was quiet but not empty. The lesson had been written into the stars. The weak would always have defenders, and no one could erase hope again. And somewhere, deep in the hidden oceans of Earth, Admiral Carter stared at the sky, her eyes calm and determined. "The galaxy will remember," she said softly, "and when the helpless call again, we will answer." For the first time in centuries, the universe felt a little lighter, a little safer. The dawn after war was not just the end of darkness, it was the beginning of a new age. The galaxy had changed. Planets once ruled by fear now whispered songs of hope. Civilizations that had been silent and broken found courage again. The name Earth carried weight across the stars, not as a threat, not as a conqueror, but as a promise. The defenseless would always have defenders. Yet the humans themselves had returned to silence. The Earth fleet slipped back into the shadows, disappearing from the eyes of those who now celebrated them. Their ships, massive and gleaming, moved like ghosts across the void, leaving no footprint except the hope they had sown. Admiral Renee Carter stood alone on the bridge of the TDS Valiant, watching the endless stretch of stars. She did not see them as empty darkness. She saw the lives she had touched, the worlds that now breathed freely, and the children who would grow up singing the songs of freedom. Her thoughts drifted to Valara, to the silver-eyed children who had watched the fleet fight in the sky. She remembered Lyra's wide eyes filled with disbelief and wonder. She had seen courage bloom in a world that had known only fear. A young pilot approached, hesitant. "Admiral, what happens now? Will they remember us?" Carter turned, her eyes calm, her voice steady yet warm. "They will," she said. "Even if we vanish again, our actions will echo. Hope is stronger than memory, and hope cannot be erased." Across the galaxy, systems far from Valara sensed the humans' quiet return. Signals pulsed through hyperspace, tiny, almost imperceptible reminders that Earth still existed. Some civilizations called them the Silent Watchers, guardians who appeared when needed and vanished when their work was done. In the ruins of the Drakath Empire, leaders whispered fearfully about the humans. They could rebuild armies, forge weapons, and capture planets, but now the galaxy knew there were forces beyond terror, and those forces would protect the helpless. On Valara, Elder Siren walked among children telling the story of the humans who had saved them. "They fight not for glory," he said. "They fight because they understand what it means to be powerless. Remember that. One day you may need to protect others the same way." Children listened, eyes shining with hope and awe. To them, humanity was more than a story. It was a promise written among the stars. The silent fleet moved silently through space, its massive vessels cutting through darkness as if part of the cosmos itself. No flags, no conquest, no demand for loyalty. Just guardians patrolling the void. Wherever fear rose, wherever the weak were hunted, the humans could appear. On a distant mining colony, abandoned for years, a small signal flickered to life. A desperate call from survivors who had hidden from raiders reached empty space. Moments later, a single human ship appeared on the horizon, glowing like a blue star. The colonists fell to their knees, crying tears of relief. Humanity had returned again, without fanfare, without demand, without expectation. And when the humans left, they left not destruction, but security. Not power, but hope. Somewhere in a dark corner of the galaxy, a historian spoke to his students, showing them the records of the Terran return. "Once, the galaxy hunted the defenseless," he said, voice heavy with reverence. "But Earth's fleet appeared, not to conquer, not to enslave, but to protect. Remember this. Remember their courage, because history teaches power without compassion is meaningless." The students nodded. They would carry the story forward. They would tell the generations to come that humans had risen, fought and vanished again, not for glory, but for justice. Back aboard the Valiant, Carter stood alone, looking at the distant glow of Valara, now slowly rebuilding under the care of its own people. Her mind wandered to all the lives saved, all the worlds touched, all the fear replaced with hope. She spoke softly into the comms, knowing somewhere someone might hear. "To any who are hunted, to any who cannot fight, know this: you are not alone. We are watching, and when the helpless call, we will answer." She paused, letting her words drift into the silence of space. They were not a threat. They were a promise. Then the fleet slipped back into the dark void of the cosmos. Like a heartbeat fading into the night, they left no trace but the memory of courage, protection, and hope. In the galaxy below, life began again. Cities rose from ashes. Forests grew where fire had burned. Children laughed where fear had ruled. And above, the stars were filled with legends, stories of humans who had returned from silence. Not to dominate, but to defend. The galaxy would never forget. Because once, the strong ruled with terror. Once the weak were hunted without mercy. But when Earth's fleet appeared, everything changed. The defenseless were no longer alone, and the galaxy learned, forever, that there were some who would rise to protect, not for glory, not for conquest, but because hope and courage are the strongest weapons of all. The story ends here. leaving the galaxy transformed, with humans returning to legend, guardians of the helpless, and the silent fleet watching over the stars, always.